It's Christmas, time of year. Our family's by the fire, snuggled up like bunnies in the snow. It's Christmas, Christmas. Little birds are singing like a choir. Winter chill is nipping at your nose. I've been waiting all year for this. Grab your cocoa and we'll reminisce. Oh, how I love when Christmas comes around. It's Christmas, birthday pie. Who cares? It's still divine. Give me all the whipped cream you can find. It's Christmas, records on, trim the tree and sing along. Watching Hallmark movies all night long. I've been waiting all year for this. Ugly sweaters I just can't resist. Oh, how I love when Christmas comes around. When it comes around. It's Christmas, candlelight, midnight carols at the church. Singing, let there be peace on earth. I don't need a single gift. There's no present that compares to this. So I just love when Christmas comes. I love when it comes around. Oh, I just love when Christmas comes around. You know I love when Christmas comes around.
say it's a matter of time, 1,000 days and the sun won't shine before I come back to you. And I'm happy, nothing's going to stop me. I'm making my way home, I'm making my way. For your love I will go far, I wanna be wherever you are. I know I'm coming back for you. Our love is a river long, the best ride in a million wrongs. I know I'm coming back to you. And I'm happy, nothing's going to stop me. I'm making my way home, I'm making my way. I go solo, oh I go solo, I make.
Hello, we're live. Welcome to my late night evening coffee show. I don't know what else to call it. So thanks for joining live. Before I start, I just want to get some feedback on the mic and the background audio visual. If you can hear me clearly, please let me know. Marco, can you hear me okay too? Harleen, can you hear me? Just want to make sure that everybody... Okay, great. Awesome. And with the live, I just want to make sure that what I'm hearing is what you guys are hearing. So, all right. How's everybody doing? Everybody enjoying your Christmas holiday? Boy, we really deserved it, didn't we? Like I was telling myself during the pandemic lockdown, I said because of a 3-month forced vacation, I told my staff and my family that I don't need any more break until the year end. I was wrong. I don't know what it was, but I really needed this break, and I'm sure you guys needed one too. That's the sense of instability and all these COVID-19 and we had a couple of scare at our clinic, so I had to get my swabbing done and stuff like that a couple months ago. I'm sure you guys all had to go through the same thing too. So you know what? Just sit back tonight, you guys. Just let's enjoy it. Now, before we start, I want you guys to do something for me. Do me a favor. So if you are joining for the first time, there's a couple of rules of engagement, which is very easy. What I want to know is that just by shouting out, just type down your name, your city, what country you're from, and just for to verification, write down your favorite coffee. Okay, my favorite coffee is Kicking Horse. Do that. One of the reason is I want to start to give us some CE points, AGD, because a BICE Institute is accredited institute, and what we can do, we give out some free CE points for you guys. But to qualify online, there's some rules. We have to prove to the organization that you guys have attended this evening coffee show. So at the beginning, shout out, simple shout out, and then at the end of the session, just shout out saying, thank you, some sort of a remark, so I can screen capture and forward to Grace. And all you have to do is just email the info@biceinstitute.com, and then Grace will verify it and send you the certificate of attendance so that you can apply to your continuing education AGD. So sounds good? Okay, all right, awesome. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. We did the first late night coffee show about a week ago, and I don't know about you guys, but I really had a lot of good time. Wasn't stressful at all. Didn't really prepare much, but just the fact that I got to spend time with you guys and, uncensored, live, unfiltered, whatever comes out of my mouth. These type of unplugged shows, it stays here. So some of you are asking if this pre-recorded version is going to be up here for a long time. No, it's alive, and I'll probably keep it till maybe tonight or possibly till tomorrow morning because of the time differentials. But it's really meant for you guys who are taking your time to join live. So I want to reward you guys for that. Okay, so thank you very much. Let's see who's here. We have Morris, we have Fan, Scott, and we have a lot of you guys are joining. Right now we have 19 members joining, so we're gonna start, okay? All right, awesome. All right, so it was funny. So as soon as I announced a few days that we're gonna do a late night TV, a live show, and the title is Ask Anything. Rather than me trying to prepare what I think you guys want to learn, I think it only makes sense to me that you guys tell me what you want to get answer from. I might not have all the answers, but I'll do my best to give you answers from my own experiences. So what I was doing was what inspired me to start these sessions, and I want to do a few of these, is when I was growing up, there used to be something called Dear Abby. I don't know if you guys remember that one. Okay. Oops, sorry. Ooh, wrong button. Oh, where is it? Right here. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if you remember, but when I was growing up, there was this column called the Reader's Digest. There was a column called Dear Abby. I don't know if some of you guys are too young to remember that. Anybody remember that column, Dear Abby? My parents used to actually write to Dear Abby. Shout out if you know what Dear Abby was. Okay. And Dear Abby was like Ask Anything. So this person, Dear Abby, he's a columnist, and she answers back, like whether it's a spousal problem, children problem, occupation problem, like anything. Like there's no boundary for it. And it seems like she's always has some really good, logical, and sensible answer. And even though I was really young, I would love reading that stuff, right? And of course, it kind of faded away once the internet hit, and but I do believe Dear Abby still exists. I think her daughter, the original columnist, she passed away, but her daughter, I think, took over the business, and I think still doing it. But I got inspired by that, right? So I might not have answered to everything, but what I do have is 25 years of experience as a dentist, as an implant dentist. So, I wanted to do my best to kind of reflect on my experience and give you some of the, hopefully logical answer to you. Okay, so that inspired that. So, ask me anything today, and the best way for me to start was, as I mentioned, in 2017, we started the Facebook BGIN, Bites Global Implant Network, and there were a few doctors as I been requested to become their friends. I have about 1,000 friends now, and they were asking me some questions. Questions simple as bone graft material versus question very specific for their case. So some of them I were answering, one-to-one personally, but some of the questions were really good, and they were worthy of me actually sharing with you guys. Because the reality is, I've been lecturing for many number of years, but also I've been going to courses since I graduated dental school. And when I was a newbie, when I go to a course, I was always afraid to ask questions. So I was a little bit timid, right? But I come to realize that if I have a typical question, probably others in the room have a typical question too, same question, right? So I'm going to just go through some of the private questions that I've received over the years, and I picked few because I cannot go over everything, right? And I promise you, the today's session is I'm going to try to limit it to 1 hour. So what time is it right now? So, okay. Yeah, so we're gonna try to be efficient, and we'll try to. I better be. Why does it say 9:41 a.m.? What time is it? 9:18. Okay, 9:18. All right. So let's hit it with the first question. Okay, first question is cortical versus cancellous. I get this question asked a lot, right? And you know, typically I get questions like this. Oh, by the way, if you guys private message me your questions, I'm going to make it anonymous, right? I don't think I need to shout out to somebody who uploaded it. I thank you guys who upload question for me, but I'll make it anonymous, right? Here it says, hey Mark, can you explain the differences in ratio of cortical versus cancellous and their different applications and result goals? Thank you, right? For me, this question, the answer to it is not really simple, right? Not really simple. I tell what I used to use. I used to use whatever the mentor who was teaching me the course was using. Sounds like somebody you know, okay? No logic behind. I was simply thinking, if he's using it and if he's getting successful result, I better use it too. Right? And I've been using it, and because of that I took many different courses, and because of that I start to change graph material every time I finish a course I come back home, right? Because every instructors, teachers, lecturers, they have their own reason to use certain brand of bone, right? And it happened to me by later on I come to realize that as I start to understand biology, I start to simplify the graph material in my office, right? Because the reality to me is that it didn't really make that much difference, really, right? The brand really didn't make difference, because typically what I've been told is that you might have 20 different type of bone graft brands, but they all come from maybe 4 sources in North America. Okay, was it North America or globally? There are only very few with the tissue banks that qualified for bone graft material for our uses, right? And I'm just going to show you something, right? Okay, hold on right here. I don't know if you guys can see this right here. Okay, all right. I decided to make a small little drawing here, right? This is not a lecture. I'm just telling you, my thought process, right? Well, there's autogenous bone, there's an allograft, and there's a xenograft. Xeno is basically a fancy name for like animal, typically like a cow or pig, right? Like a BioOS is a big brand name for xenograft, and Dagraft is a brand name for a pig bone. I heard the pig bone is really good, very similar density to human, right? And also the synthetic bone, right? Like a fiberglass and plants and things like that. No, plant is not synthetic. Yeah, a synthetic material which we don't really use too much anymore. Over the years, wow, we have a lot of members today. That's great. Yeah. So over the years, the commercial bone that I started using and I kept on using is pretty much an allograft, which is a human source, which is cortical and cancellous. And if you were to ask me what ratio, how do I use more cortical or cancellous in my practice, it's 80-20. I use 80% cancellous and 20% cortical. Okay, and I'll tell you why. I'm not saying that the way I do it is correct. The simplicity is this, right? I do implant for a living, so what it means is that whenever I do graft procedure, I don't want my patients to wait for a long time. So I need something that's relatively quick to resorb. So that is cancellous, right? Cancellous bone typically resorbs quicker than the cortical because it's less dense, right? And human bone is less dense than animal, so I use cancellous a lot. So for example, sinus elevation, minor ridge augmentation, 4 to 5 wall defect, I would use a cancellous bone. Okay. Only time that I would use a cortical is the defect is too big, so that I need to keep the wall occupied, right? Because the reality is this, one thing that for me is there is a trade-off. No bone graft is perfect. There's a trade-off, quality versus the volume versus the speed at which it turns into bone. Okay, and it all really depends on the biology, in my opinion. So the younger the patient, you can expect that you can go in there a little earlier because the turnover is going to be quicker versus somebody who you're working on is 80 years old top, right? To me, when the light bulb went up was this. When I come to realize that no bone graft material that I purchase turns into bone. That was shocking, right? And the best bone graft material, I come to realize that is no bone graft. If you can occupy the 5-wall defect with a blood clot, then that has the best resulting bone quality. Because all this bone graft material, I come to realize that is that it has just occupying space. Cancellous occupy less space, a space for less amount of time, and cortical, they tend to occupy the space longer time because it takes longer to disappear. And cow bone is going to be there for a long time, right? Long time. So when I talk to some of the go-to surgeons around the world, people that I have not met like before, and these guys who do implant for a living, like myself, who does over 1,000, 2,000 implants a year for a living, there was 2 things I come to realize that we had in common, right? We had in common. By the way, we never met them before, right? Being the first time we talk about clinical things. One is a lot of them use cancellous bone for the same reason, so that they can go in there earlier. And the second commonality I come to realize with them is that they don't do multiple surgeries. A lot of them do immediates. So because the reason is those of us who do implant for a living, we're very patient focused, patient oriented, and we want to avoid multiple surgery the best that we can, right? So a lot of you guys are asking like a GBR, like a sausage technique and a mesh and things like that, block graft, those things I used to do a lot. I don't do them as much anymore. So because I come to combine a lot of the procedures together. Okay, hope that makes sense. So the difference is the ratio of cortical. I think for me, I'm going to show you something over here. Let me see. Let me go to, there's a slide that I prepared. Here's an example right here. Okay, so this was a graph that I was showing to at one of my sinus course, and I made this. There's a 2-day course, advanced sinus course, and those doctor was asking about the graft material. So what happened was, after I took him out for dinner, I came to a hotel and I made this graph here. And what this graph shows is time versus the graft of the volume, right? And the red line and the pink and the turquoise and the yellow, those are different type of graft. So the bovine, which is the cow bone, graft volume remains with the time because the turnover is slower, right? And the cortical and cancellous autogenous. And autogenous, the resorption is the quickest because it turn over the quickest time. And the optimal, what I find is right here, right? Because to me, the optimal time is a 4 month. Like in my office, it doesn't matter if I'm doing a crestal approach, lateral approach, or immediate molar, immediate anterior. All my patients are booked 4 months later for impression. So it's very important for me to make sure that whatever I do in 4 months time, when they're taking impression, my implant does come out. Okay, so I had to standardize it, and to me, the cancellous bone is the majority of the cases. So does that mean that I don't use cortical? No, I use cortical too. I'm just going to show you. And also, you have to realize the particle size is important too. The bigger the particle, what I find is that takes longer to turn over, right? So even if it's a cancellous bone, if the particle size is big, right, it takes longer to turn over. So this is an example of the case that I've done. Oops. Let me go right here. So here I did a sinus elevation and put the implant in, and what I did was I combined the lateral window with the lateral ridge augmentation here. So the first layer is cancellous bone, and then I've layered it with cortical bone. So in my practice, I don't tend to mix those two together. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I just use it in a different layers, because how I approach is Homeway, Dr. Homeway. He taught me this about 20 years ago. It's called sandwich or layered approach. And I use a cancellous first, and I use a cortical, because cortical layer is going to take a little longer to resorb, but it will maintain the volume. And because this outer part where the implant is not going to be engaged, it doesn't really matter to me, right? So, and then I use the membrane over here because I did a release. Right? I don't always use the collagen membrane. That's another question I get a lot. Do you use membrane? What kind of membrane? It's just a barrier. I only use the membrane if I've released the periosteal. If I don't release the periosteal, I tend to not use the membrane. So I don't use membrane as much as some of the doctors out there. Okay, and then 2 weeks post-op. That's the case that you see, right? Healing really good. Okay, so you're getting a lot of volume by doing a sandwich or layered approach. Okay. So that's that. Okay, so hopefully that answers some of the questions. Okay, all right, good. You use more. There was a question from here. Okay, the question was Easy said, do you use more of a 0.25 particle or 0.5? Oh, definitely smaller one. In any given day, I want to use a smaller one. It's gentler on the tissue, and it's easier to manipulate, and it will resorb quicker for me, and quicker resorption is better for me. So it's a trade-off. When I'm doing lateral window, like a sinus approach, and I use a cancellous, I pack it maybe 30% more than I need, because I anticipate it's going to shrink. It's going to shrink. But what I notice is, even though it will shrink, the remaining bone quality is better. So I'd rather have a less but better quality than more volume and poor quality, right? Because when I go in 4 months, I want to make sure that this bone bleeds and drills like bone. Okay, hopefully that answers the question. Okay, all right, here you go. And then let's go to the next one over here. Any useful advanced procedures? Okay. Here said, hi Dr. Kwon, I have 2 questions for your show tomorrow. What are 3 advanced surgical procedures you believe providers should focus on after placing comfortable number of implants? Okay, and now I have 2 questions. And second question was, I have trouble gauging how much bone to pack after using a casket. If I know I lifted the sinus membrane 3 mm, how much bone does that equate to? Okay. I've been in this situation too, right? So some of you who's taken the course and now you're comfortable placing implants on your own in your own practice, and you're looking for those big fat ridges miles away from the infralateral nerve or miles away from the sinus. First advanced procedure, maybe not even advanced, it will be a crystal approach sinus elevation, which is pretty easy. So in our comprehensive implant residency 12-day program, we include crystal approach sinus elevation as a part of basic training, right? So crystal approach, the reason is I've done the consensus in my practice. Just by learning to do crystal approach sinus elevation, you can increase the number of implants that you place per year by 30%. Okay, easily. So if I were to interpret this as what additional procedure after the basic training you can take so that you will increase the number of implants in your practice, would be a crystal approach. But once you get that out of the way, okay, like this person who asked me, what are the 3 advanced procedures? So for me, that I can recommend is, one is immediate anterior. Okay, immediate anterior is so powerful. The reason is, those patients, who comes to you and never have the money and will not get any high-end procedure done unless it's covered by dental coverage, right? All of a sudden have money if their front tooth gets knocked out, right? They find money, right? I don't know why. What I'm trying to say is there's a demand for anterior, because anterior is a cosmetic, and that's cosmetic is always a demand, right? So what I found is that when I've learned to do immediate anterior, because when you are not just placing implant, I'm not saying that staging approach is a inferior way of doing it. That's not what I'm saying. I know doctors who stage the anterior and still get beautiful results. It's more challenging to do staged approach for anterior cases though. Immediate is easier. And once you understand the fundamental principle of immediate anterior, for me, once I figured it out, it took me a while to figure it out, but once I figured it out, it became very, very predictable and easy, and more importantly, high number of patient accepts the case. Case acceptance is super high for immediate anteriors, okay? And it's very profitable if you can do it properly. So you extract the tooth, right? And then you place an implant, and then you do a socket grafting for the buccal jump gap. And you might add some soft tissue grafting if you need to, right? And immediate temporization, right? That is 4 to 5 procedure in one sitting, okay? It's one of the most profitable. And if you can do that within an hour to hour and a half from start to finish, right, which is doable, right? And I will show you how I do it in the January study club live session. They're going to give me less than 40 minutes to do from start to finish, and I'll show you how I streamline doing it. So learn how to do immediate anterior, very, very, very powerful, okay? Second will be sinus elevation lateral window. And some of the doctors will say, well, I know how to do crestal. Why do I need a lateral window? Even though it's only 30% of all your sinus elevation requires lateral window. Why do I recommend it? Like for me, it's more than that. It's more than that. For example, there was a time that I was doing crestal approach. The bone was only like 4 millimeter. But I didn't know how to do lateral window. I just learned how to do crestal. This was many, many years ago. And I was doing a crestal, and then guess what happened? I perforated, right? Shoot. So what do? I packed that up, right? I pick a little bit of bone and then sealed it up, apologize to the patient. We'll go at it again a few months later. So 3 months later, patient comes back, right? I'm doing it again, crestal approach. Guess what happened? Yep. Perfect again, right? Perfect again. So oops, wrong button again. So perfect again, right? So I was a little bit distressed, right? So I was going to patch back again and then bring the patient back again for the second time. And my CDA, who went to my course, went to the course together. Oh, by the way, what I really recommend, if you can afford it, when you're going to courses, bring your CDA with you. Pay extra little amount of money. A lot of courses, they will give you a much discounted price when you bring a CDA. If the course allows it, do that, because she will motivate you, right? Okay, she or he will motivate you, and that's exactly what happened. And then my CDA at that time, her name was Parm, and Parm goes, Dr. Kwon, we're not sending this patient again. Remember that course that we went there? The lateral course, one that you drill from the side? We have that kit. It's sterilized. I prepared it for you. Okay, she opens it up, right? So I was forced to do a lateral window, and I did it. I wasn't comfortable, but I did it. Lifted it. There was perforation. I lifted that too. I sealed it up with a little bit of collagen membrane, packed the bone, okay, and then we did it. Put the implant, all that. And my CDA, I remember what she said. She looked at me after. It wasn't so hard, was it, Dr. Kwon? We should do more, right? So ever since then, what did I do? I started looking for lateral window cases, right? So what I'm trying to say, the moral of the story is that it gives you another world of surgery. And not only you can tackle those very minimal cases, but in case you perforate the crestal, you don't need to bring the patient back. You can just finish that procedure on the spot if you needed to, right? And also, those of you guys who might be doing some, like angling, tipping of the implant for all-on-4 type of a concept, when an implant do fail, what are you gonna do? You wanna tilt it again? No. So I had to learn to do lateral window approach to rescue a lot of those cases too, right? And there's a myth. Some doctors say that lateral window has a higher complication rate than crestal approach. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Okay, not necessarily in my experience. The number one reason why patient ends up with a sinusitis in my practice is not crestal versus lateral. Okay, but it is misdiagnosis. The patient already has a closed ostium and cloudy sinus, and who's prone to getting sinusitis as a human being. And when you do any type of sinus grafting, whether it's lateral window or crestal, okay, that can result in blockage of ostium and leading to sinusitis, right? The reason there's a research showing that the lateral window has a higher chance of sinusitis is because of the perforation of membrane. Okay, it's been well defined. Okay, when there's a tear of a membrane, the particle that you use, especially if you're using those big, large size particle, that can block the ostium and render the sinus environment gram-negative, and that can cause sinusitis. Okay, so knowing why you get the sinusitis, I think that's important. Okay, right. And third one is, I cannot stress enough, soft tissue grafting. Okay, soft tissue grafting is very, very important. I wish I knew this earlier in my career. I come to realize later on. I only start to really realize and start to do a lot of soft tissue grafting about 5 years ago, and about 2 years ago, a lot more. I'm doing at least soft tissue grafting, 2 per day, 1 or 2, and because it doesn't take a long time, but it really, really helps with the longevity of implant. Okay, especially free gingival grafting. When Dimitri and Jeff Lee, those periodontists and Sergey, when they were invited to my institute in Vancouver where I was lecturing, it really opened my eyes. Soft tissue grafting in my practice is not really a profitable procedure, right? It takes me longer to do any soft tissue grafting versus placing an implant and sinus elevation, right? So soft tissue grafting takes a little longer, but its impact on the health of the implant, longevity, I think is very, very important. Okay, so if I have to choose 3, it will be anterior, lateral window, and soft tissue grafting procedure. If I had to choose only 3, okay, but more important than anything would be this. Okay, I didn't include PRF and sticky bone as a surgical because the doctor who private messaged me says surgical procedure, and PRF and sticky bone is not a surgical procedure. It's an adjunct procedure, right? I do PRF and sticky bone with pretty much every patient. And what it helped me to understand better is a biological healing. What is a PRF? Okay, a lot of people ask, what is a PRF? PRF is basically a well-controlled blood clot. Those young people who already clots really, really well, really good healing, you might not even need PRF. But many of my patients are geriatric patients, well over age 50, going into 70 and 80s. They don't clot that well. They don't heal well. So for my practice, I find that this PRF and sticky bone really, really, really useful. It is controversial with a sticky bone. Now, sticky bone, you take away all the controversy away. Let's say, growth factor, that's not enough, blah, 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 all this. Just the mere fact that it improves the physical handling characteristic for me, makes a mediocre surgeon like myself into looking like a good surgeon, right? So, it just makes the procedure much simpler, quicker, easier, and predictable, right? So those of you, if I want, there's one more procedure that I want to really, really highly recommend above anything, it would be a PRF and sticky bone. Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, here's an example of a sticky bone right here, right? Okay, so here, like for example, if you look at the case here, clinical case here, I have 2 implant placed and buccal walls were gone, but I didn't just do socket grafting. Buccal walls are gone, but that's okay, right? Place an implant, and then I put the poncho PRF, put some sticky bone in the sockets, right? I close it up, and 2 weeks later on the right side, heals beautifully. No membrane, no collagen membrane was needed here. All you need is approximation. I didn't do the periosteal release, so for me, there's no need to use collagen membrane. Save some money, okay? Do it all the time, all the time. Number three. Okay, I'm going to what time is it? 9:43. So I got about 15 minutes. Okay. This question: crystal lift versus and the graft amount. I get this one asked a lot of questions too, right? Okay. I have trouble gauging how much bone to pack after using a casket. If I know I lift the sinus membrane 3 millimeter, how much bone does that equate to? So the question is, I lifted 3 millimeter. That's about what? If you place a 10 millimeter implant and you lifted a 3 millimeter or more bone, and then to place the 4.5 by 10 typical implant length, how much bone do you need to add? This is a valid question because some of you have to order bone beforehand and you don't want to order less or you don't want to order too much. Okay, my answer okay, you ready for this? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, you can literally use a casket and pump up the water half cc, 1 cc, it doesn't matter. And you can not put anything, just put the implant in and you can still form the bone. Because the excess amount of the water the body is going to resorb, and even if it tents down, the implant is going to tent it up and you'll still get some bone around it. Okay, but that's not what I would recommend. Okay, what I would recommend is just a PRF. What I've been doing is I've been following Dr. Son, Professor Son from DS Son from South Korea. He's an amazing Gosu surgeon, right? Okay, he used PRF as a primary graft, source of material for regeneration when he's doing a sinus lifting of any kind, whether it's a crestal or lateral. As long as he puts an implant, that's all he uses, PRF gels, not flat, just gels, like a little slugs, right? Okay, and he will put those. And so that's what I've been doing for crestal approach. I lift it, casket, put a 1 slug in there, and I just put the implant. And the bone regenerates amazingly. Because don't forget, right? What is bone graft material? It's just there to tent, create a space. So you don't really necessarily, I find that I need to match the amount of the bone versus how much I lift. I can just eyeball it, right? Typically, if I'm using a bone graft material, cancellous bone again with the sticky bone, right? I make the sticky bone very, very loose, not tight, loose. So you know, that my majority is a gel of sticky bone and maybe small little particles. That's another great thing about sticky bone. You don't need to use a lot of graft material, right? You save so much money on it. And I push it in there and put the implant. The reason I sometimes put a little bit of graft material like cancellous bone so that when I take an x-ray afterwards, I can see it. Because what I find is when I only use PRF membrane and 2 weeks later we take an x-ray, you see an implant, but you don't really see much of a shape. So by adding a little bit of a particle, it does help to visualize. It doesn't make any difference as far as the quality of the bone goes. Quality of the bone, as a sinus grafting, is nothing got to do with the material that you use. Right? If you want the best material, don't use bone, because the blood clot is what's going to turn into bone eventually, and the rest of the cancellous cortical will disappear. Right? So less particle you have, at the rate at which the blood clot will form and blood vessel will regenerate and turn it over to osteoids, and eventually the bone is going to be quicker, right? So my answer to this question simple is doesn't really make that much difference, right? Try just using a PRF. You'll be surprised for crestal approach, right? Just a half a slug or 1 slug is all you need. Okay. All right. Next one here. Okay, how's everybody doing? Okay, everybody doing okay? All right. Okay. All right. So next one here. Okay, I'll try to wrap up to question number 5. Okay. Next question is very similar to the before one. So this one here, I got the question like today, right? Today. And this doctor gave me like 4 different questions, like whole essay. I said, hold on, right? I cannot answer all that. And some of them were very, very clinically focused question. And I don't mind answering clinically focused question on the Ocffee shows. But if you can give me an x-ray at least or clinical picture, some information, so that I can give a constructive treatment plan recommendation, right? Okay. And hopefully give me at least more than a day for me to prepare something, right? So the question here was, if extraction and socket graft was done 4 months ago and now ready for an implant. Is it better to use DENSA versus casket so that the innate bone can be used to elevate the sinus with DENSA rather than using casket that needs additional bone graft? Good question, right? DENSA burr is an amazing burr, right? It is an amazing burr. I've never had a drill that can do so many different things, right? I mean, it's a very sharp drill. It drills really, really smoothly. It is a linear taper drill, so cut is very smooth and the feedback is excellent, right? It also can be used as a universal drill because most of the implant these days come in a taper shape anyways. So a lot of doctors that I know actually switched over their own drill kit with a DENSA drill kit and then just add a little bit of a drivers and adapter implant a carrier. It also does ossedensification. That's what they call it, DENSA burr. And by reversing, what it does is it packs the bone. But because it's in a flute, when you reverse it, not only it packs the bone sideways, but when you use a pumping motion, it can create apical pressure using that innate bone to push out. That's what the doctor is referring to. Using a DENSA burr, a lot of the times when you penetrate the floor of the sinus in a reverse mode, you're pushing the innate bone against it. Okay, that's what reduces the perforation of the bone underneath. And I performed that surgery in the session 11 of the last year's live surgery online study club, so check that out, right? And I've done the right side lateral window SA3 and an implant on the left side. I had only about 4 millimeter, and then I did a DENSA burr to lift it up. What is better? Again, they're different system. That's a similar things, but they got their own advantage and disadvantages, right? For me, determining factor for me is number one, amount of the sinus lifting that I want to do. My decision is if I need to only lift like 2, 3, or even up to 4 millimeter, and the bone quality is poor. Is my grayscale Hounsfield value on the CBCT shows a very low, like a less than 100. Okay, then I would pick up a DENSA burr, right? Because I can achieve by reversing, dense the bone, right? So that I can achieve initial stability. And if I only have to lift like 2, 3 millimeters, then DENSA burr, innate bone, that amount is all you need. You don't even need additional bone, right? So that falls into that category. Okay, so by like a day before the next day surgery, I'm going through all my CT scan, okay, one more time, right? Because I, sometimes I do like a 4 crystal elevation implants in that given day, and I have to let my surgical prep team know which kit to prepare, right? So in those cases where I'm only lifting a little bit and the bone quality is low, I go to DENSA burr. If I'm lifting more than 3 millimeter, for example 4 or 5 millimeter, and I still want to do a crystal, and the bone density is high, if it's more than 300, 200 to 300, even that range start to go up, I would pick up a casket instead of a DENSA. Because in my hand, DENSA drills do really, really well in the soft bone area, in the reverse ossedensification. But when the bone quality is hard, then it's a lot of force that I need to do. It's a lot of force. So in that regard, casket is better because you can, punch through that 1 millimeter increment until you get the pop, right? Okay. So, but it really depends on your skill. But I can tell you one thing though, DENSA drill, if you practice with it long enough and you get really good at it, you can do better crystal surgery with a DENSA drill than casket. Okay, but there is a learning curve for it. Okay, and some of you guys were asking me to use the stopper on the DENSA drill. You know what? I did, and I stopped using it. It's too much work. It takes way too long that using the stopper thing. For beginners, I highly recommend it, but once you get the feel for the drill, you're probably not going to use it. Now, on the other hand, casket, the learning curve on the casket is so little. I can literally teach any of the resident that one day how to do it, and they can repeat that on the real patient, after the weekend, right? So the casket is really dummy proofed, dummy proofed the way of lifting the sinus, and it's very safe mechanism built in is amazing. Okay, so that's what my answer to that is. Okay, yeah. All right, how are we doing with the time, guys? How you guys doing? Okay, yeah. All right, so 53 minutes. I got about 7 minutes. Okay, if there's any questions that you want to ask me before we close off, please let me know. Okay, hopefully I'm answering some of these questions that you guys had a burning desire for answers. Right. All right, this next one is a fun one, right? I had a doctor here says had an excess tissue. Okay, all right. Like those of you who start to do the bone reduction related full arch surgery. Okay, for example, like locators or like an FP3, like an all-on-4, all-on-6. It requires you to reduce it because you need the room for the multi-unit abutment, or you need the room for locator, right? Locator abutments, right? So what happens is you raise the flap and then you do your bone reduction, right? You do your bone reduction. And you do bone reduction. And what happens is you have so much soft tissue remaining, right? So much soft tissue remaining. And what I used to do when I was a youngster, when I first learned how to do all-on-4 type of a fixed prosthesis, and after I went to Portugal, I came to Vancouver and started doing this, and I was one of the very first doctors to do all-on-4, which was like 17 years ago, right? Doing it 17, 18 years ago. And after you reduce it, I got some excessive tissue, and my CTO was going, what the heck am I going to do with this, right? There's so much. So what I did was I cut them. I trimmed it so that I can make it nice and tidy, and then put the bridge back on. And those cases later on had a higher failure rate. Okay, I didn't know why at the beginning, but obviously it's because of a lack of attached tissue, attached gingiva. Okay, so what I started to do about 10 years ago is not to trim those tissue, basically apically reposition them. Okay, apically reposition them, use some blind suture or anchoring suture, like treat it like a vestibular deepening, right? And it's easier to do that when you have something that is fixed on top of it, right? For example, like a teeth in a day, teeth next day is really easy because you get to compress the tissue with the prosthesis and helps to apically reposition those precious attached tissue, right? Now, how do you do that with the locators? This doctor took the teeth out, trimmed the bone, and placed these implants, right? And then decided to bury these with a cover screw. So this is the problem, right? And a lot of doctors will say, fruitcake, by the way. A lot of doctors will say, I don't feel confident immediate loading locators, so I'm going to take the easy approach. So they trim the bone, place the implant, cover screw, primary close, and soft reline. And what happens is tissue has a very hard time healing, and that's exactly what happened right here. All right, that's exactly what here. Here it says I placed 4 implants in the anterior mandible after some extraction, but I had to reduce some bone between 7 to 10 millimeters. 7 to 10 millimeter is sometimes, it may seem a lot, but sometimes you need to do that, right? After all the implants were in, I had excessive tissue on the buccal and the lingual. I haven't done too many of these cases this yet, and this is the first time I had so much excessive tissue. I wasn't sure what to do. right? I didn't want to remove keratinized tissue. However, I didn't really know how to close the things up, leave the implants exposed with the healing abutments. After a few days, I saw the patient again, and the tissue was moving around too much, not healing properly. I suspect because of the excessive tissue, there was too much dead space, and I didn't know how to tack the tissue down, right? Okay. So that's a very typical scenario. So my recommendation is, if you're getting good torque, immediate locator solves all this problem. Like, seriously. Okay, by doing an immediate locator situation, once you get a good stability, put the locator abutments on, right? Okay, you don't even have to deepen the vestibule. Just put the locator abutments on, and you use a processing cap to pick it up and lock it in. The flange will act like a vestibular deepening a pressure anyways, okay? And you tell the patient not to remove this for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, that's my protocol, 2 weeks. You don't touch it. Doesn't matter, all the crap gets in there. Doesn't matter, it'll still heal beautifully, okay? Trust me, right? Been doing it for many years, right? And when the patient comes back, 2 weeks later, you remove it. Yes, you got like crap underneath, the fluid and everything, but once you rinse it out, the tissue healed amazingly well, okay? So you don't have that problem, okay? If some of you said, okay, I got the stability, but I don't feel comfortable loading it, what do I do? What do I do? This is what you do. You get yourself a healing abutment that comes out about 2 millimeters above the tissue, okay? You typically 4 or 5 millimeter healing abutment height is perfect, okay? And what you do is you either use a Japanese soft reliant material. What do you call that? Fukuyama. Okay, I keep calling it like a futomaki, but that's not. That futomaki is a Japanese dish, right? Okay, it's not futomaki. So Shokuyama, I think, yeah. And the reason I like that reliant material is it stays like a gel, medium bouncy gel throughout the entire 4 or 5 months. Whereas the other one, like visco gel and things like that, it stays soft and it becomes hard. Which is not what I want, right? Okay, so I use that, right? Or sometimes you're binding for time, you want something finished quickly, right? Put some a bonding under the denture, right? Well, before you put the bonding under the denture, this is what you have to do. Get your denture, right? Put a bite restoration material and put it in and have the patient bite down, because that will give you indentation of the healing abutments. Once you get that out, you relieve that with a straight handpiece, okay? And you repeat that one more time until there is no show through, okay? That's how you make sure that the healing abutment area is totally passive, okay? Once it's totally passive, right? Then what you can do is either go with the Shokuyama Japanese reliner, or, right? I've also done this before. Just put some bond in there, put a bite restoration material like a blue mousse, and have the patient bite down, okay? And then send the patient home. The fit is so good, okay? Sometimes you don't have to have the patient remove that. Okay? Tell the patient, don't remove it unless it falls out, okay? And then a week or two, patient come back, you remove it, tissue healing is beautiful. Okay, there's going to be a live session next year. I think it was June or something. Okay, I booked myself 1 hour to do an immediate locator and loading of the denture under 1 hour. Okay, it's very simple because I'm going to combine with a guide and the freehand, but the pickup portion, it will be done manually. So I'll show you guys. Okay, there's a lot of little tricks that I can share with you. But the moral of the story, yeah, that's right. Okay, Tokuyama, not a Shokuyama. It's Marco says Tokuyama soft reliner, right? Okay, so how do you spell that? Right here, I show you. Tokuyama soft reliner, not a Futomaki reliner. Okay, yeah, Tokuyama reline. Okay, if you know how to use it well, Dimitri doesn't like it. He says his implants fail because of that. I don't buy it. Okay, I don't believe it. This is one of the best materials. It's expensive. Okay, but Japanese people, they know how to do 2 things really well. 1, make cars, and 2, make the reline material. So trust me, it's really good. Okay, so that's the situation. Okay, right? So yeah, right. So immediate locator. Okay, This was one more question I was going to cover, but we might not have enough time to cover, and we might have to go through it the next Sunday to cover this. Removing broken screw. Hey Mark, what suggestion for tools, instruments for removing broken screw in implants? I tried to drill through, did not work, so I drilled a hole through a screw but couldn't get it out. I'm going to cover this one next Sunday, okay? And if you guys have other question that you want some answer to, right? Okay, feel free to private message me. Give me some information. However, if it's a clinical cases though, you need to give me a little more information than just one paragraph, right? Okay, so broken screws says, oh my god. Trust me, it will happen, right? It will happen, right? If you do implants long enough, it will happen. This used to be like big time thing when I was doing external hex implants like 20 years ago. A lot of the implants 25 to 20 years ago were external hex brand mark systems, and because external hex, everything connects from the outside, all the torque goes to the screw, and we'll get screw loosening and screw breakage a lot. Okay, so that's when I picked up a lot of the skills how to remove the screws by reversing them out and save the implants, right? Nowadays, because of the internal hex connection, you get a lot of implant wall breaking, fracture implant. That's something that I had to also overcome, starting about 5 years ago, right? So we'll talk about that in the future as well. Okay, next time 10, same thing, 9 o'clock, man. Okay, yeah, so Sunday 9 p.m. put your kids to bed, make yourself a coffee, relax, we have a good time. And if you have a specific question, like I said, private message me. I will post that up as anonymous. Okay, because if you have a question, if you have a burning question, the likelihood is that the rest of all of us have the same question too, right? Because you're not alone. You're not alone. And if you don't ask me those questions, I wouldn't know what to prepare, right? Because some of the questions that you ask, like, I didn't realize that a lot of you had a question about that, right? Because it's been so long for me when I was a beginner stage, like many years ago. So to me right now, like, surgery is like easy as putting on my shorts on or combing my hair, right? Surgery is such an easy part. People don't believe me when I said implant dentistry. Surgery is the easy part. More you do implant dentistry, surgery gets easier. But what does not get easier is the prosthetic and occlusion and soft tissue, okay? Actual surgery part is easy, okay? But the occlusion and prosthetic, okay, yeah, especially when you do multiple cases. So I'll cover more of that screw and complication maybe next Sunday, okay, and other topics that you want me to discuss, okay? So if you have any question, let me know. Hope you guys had a great time. And what I want you to do is, if you guys want to receive that complimentary point, now is the time that you need to shout out before you log off. How do you shout out? Say thank you or great, some sort of a remark, so that I can screen capture that and I can send it to Grace, so that when she receives the email that you had a shout out at the beginning and shout out at the end, and you qualify to receive an AGD approved 1CE credit, whether you're a US doctor or Canadian doctor. If the AGD is approved by many countries around the world, so you can apply for all that, okay? So that was great. Hope you guys had a good time, and looking forward to seeing you again. Okay, you guys stay safe. Okay, and feel free, reach out to me. Okay, you guys take care, and see you soon. Have a safe, healthy holiday, my friend. Bye bye.